Welcome to yet another episode of African Nostalgia, where we talk about African stories from African perspectives. Thank you very much for the support you've shown in our previous episode. Thank you for watching, for subscribing, for the comments that have been coming, and we appreciate so much for the support you've shown us. Okay, in our previous episode, you guys heard that I had to travel for 17 kilometers in search of water. It wasn't easy at all. I've seen your comments, people saying, what, 17 kilometers in search of water? It does happen. It's life. Different people experience different lifestyles, and that was just my story. Today's story is a little bit different. Today's guest is someone who's been able to transition now from that life, the village life, to places he didn't even imagine he could go. But who else can tell a story better than the person himself? So, welcome, Dan. Today, I expect that you're going to tell us the story of how you transitioned from being a simple village boy to, where you are at the moment. I've heard so much about you. I've read so much about you. I've listened to podcasts about you. I've watched videos, read articles, and knowing you from where I know you in the village, I know your journey. But then, it can't have been easy moving from a village boy to going to a national person in a national school, and then becoming a global citizen where you are currently. Kindly take us through that journey. Tell us the story of how you moved from that small boy that I knew in the village to who you are today.
Thanks a lot, Henry, for the introduction. Just to be clear, I'm still the village boy, whether in a bigger city, in a small city, still the same person. I'm not sure where to start. Yes, I went to school in Sekuru district, and like every other kid, did all the things that we were doing in the village. In your earlier story, you talked about going to fetch water so early in the morning. I did the same. On some occasions, we had to fight some wild animals, some hyenas, and so on, search for water.
Wait a minute. Did I hear you say that you used to chase hyenas on your way to get water? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah. You had it right, Henry. So the thing is, usually there's a season when hyenas are just roaming freely. It's mostly during the rainy seasons when the bushes are a bit thicker and so on. They usually roam freely. And hyenas are not the most confident animals. So they just emerge, sniff, they see someone, they run. And so donkeys are also very sensitive animals. So when you're going with them at night, they make a particular sound when they see something unfamiliar. And so on that particular day, the donkeys were making these sounds, and so it alerted us that something was happening. And then we look and we see this animal that is going, hyenas, it's like they have one shorter leg, so just walking like it's limping. What the heck? But they're quite scared of people, except when they are very hungry. They might be, when they are hungry, they can be a bit unfriendly. But with a few stones and so on, they disappeared. But we went throughout the journey feeling a bit scared, because we didn't know if they would go and reorganize and show up and so on. But yes, that was the norm.
That must have been very scary. It's an experience I wouldn't wish for myself, to encounter an hyena or any any animal of the cat family. If it's not the cat we keep at home, count me out. But I'm really glad you overcame the challenges.
I had to walk to a school which was quite a distance from home. But I remember all those experiences with a lot of nostalgia because they were amazing times. I made amazing friends and I discovered who I was. So the story starts at Katumbi Primary School where I went, and at the end of my Class 8 exam I did quite well, and I was the best student in the constituency. And as it was at that time, the regulations for school selection were that if you topped in your constituency, then you would get a chance to go to your first choice school. And my first choice school was a good national school, and so they took me, which was a bit of a surprise to me that I got into the school. I vividly remember when I got the news that I'd been selected from the school. I had just come from herding our cows, like I used to. That is what I was doing after my KCP, the final primary school education in Kenya. I went to looking after our cows, our goats, so that was my daily activity. So I came back at the end of the day, as was the norm, and so I hear this amazing news that my aunt in the city sent a message to the National Selection Board, and she's been informed that I was placed in this amazing school. Of course, it was a lot of joy, but I knew that the next morning I'll still wake up, go to the forests, herd the cattle, and when you go herding with, I used to wear shorts, I didn't wear trousers. You'd come home when you are showering, because the trees and the shrubs have been piercing you, it would be so painful. But I think it got a bit easier from then to just be oh hey, yes, I'm herding the cows, but I'll be going to this really amazing school. So that is how that started. And so the time came to go to this really amazing school. Of course, nobody in my family knew where that was, so we had to contact some relatives in the city to sort of take us there, show us the way.
Okay, Dan, interesting story about where you grew up, and I can relate to the stories because I grew up in a very similar setting. My dad actually went to the same school that you went, the primary school. And when you tell about herding cattle and the way the thorns would scratch you when you're herding, totally relatable. But then, when you think about growing up in the village and in Katumbi and that setup, are there things that you were taught by your grandparents or by your parents or by your relatives that shaped you to even be selected for a national school? Are there things that you still remember that were taught to you by the people you grew around with?
Yeah, a lot of things. Firstly, I vividly remember the sense of community. I think growing up, church was a big aspect of our lives. We made a lot of friends there. We got to practice various things, if you are interested in public speaking, in presentations, in organizing things, in singing. So it was an amazing community, and I was in a church where, for example, the priests and the elders were very supportive of me. I was doing quite well in school, and I think every time I met them, they usually said a word of encouragement. They treated me with respect, and that motivated me to keep going. In terms of things I remember, as I said, I was fortunate to have my 3 grandparents around, and they all taught me different things. I listened to my grandfather tell me about how he went to Mombasa as a very young boy to work in the Kenya Ports Authority, where they were, basically just doing manual jobs, offloading things from the ships, arranging them and so on. And by doing that, he managed to educate all his 8 children. I found that to be super motivating. I also heard about my grandfather, because his father had a lot of cattle and so on. About this story, about how thieves and rustlers came around and how they managed to evade them and so on. So these stories of bravery and hard work and planning from him were really, really motivational to me. And I felt like, hey, I come from this lineage of really great people, and so I can be great as well.
Thank you. And now, moving from the village life to a national school, what are the things that you found in the national setup that were not present when growing in the village or in a village school that you found shocking, and what are some of the aspects of your life in the village that you had to leave behind now to adapt to the national school life?
Yeah, it turned out to be a bigger transition than I imagined. You just think that you will slide right in, but there are a lot of things that you don't consider. Firstly, I grew up in a community where it was one tribe mostly, and that is all I knew. And I would hear stories about other tribes and all these stereotypes. And I went to school on the back of Kenya's post-election violence, where there was a lot of community profiling. So, you had all these ideas about other communities, that they are like this, they are like this. Most of them were not nice stories. And then you go to a school where all these communities are placed, and you realize all your roommates or dorm mates, as we used to call them, are from totally different communities. So at first you're just observing them closely. You're like, hey, this is a Meru, let me see if they have a panga somewhere. You're just curious. Yeah. Or this one is from this tribe. I was told they are thieves, so I should probably watch them. But then after a while, you are like, hey, there are no more people just like me. So that was a bit of a shock, just that mixture of people. Yeah. And of course there were other things. For example, you come to this high school, there were new standards of cleanliness. You had to iron your clothes, you had to tie a tie. I had no idea how to tie a tie. I had no idea how to iron clothes. I had not done much washing of clothes myself. When you went to the dining hall, you had to eat with the forks and the knives. I was used to just washing my hands and just pouncing. So that was a bit of a shock. And also other cultural things, you met kids from the urban areas. Entertainment was a bit different to them. When I was in the village, church was a big part, that was a big entertainment, or going to the market on Thursdays, or going to someone's wedding and dancing to gospel songs. And then you come here and they're talking about, these bongo music artists. I was used to Ken or Maria, that was El Kativoi, that was my music. Here they are, they're like, oh, there's a new artist, exciting artist called Diamond, called Alikiba. There's Sauti Sol upcoming. They're like, oh, hey, Lupita was nominated for an award. I'm like, who are these people? They're talking about Jay-Z, about Rihanna, about Beyonce. I'm like, I don't know these people.
Okay, you've talked about Kenwa Maria and Kativoi and these local artists that you grew up listening to, and you said you loved their music. So can you give us a little bit of a verse from your favorite song as a child from those artists that you mentioned?
Thanks for that interesting question, Henry. Kenwa Maria had so many hits. We had so many cassettes. It's like every other market day there would be a new volume, and you'd actually go buy. So we made sure our mother brought the latest every time. And then on the market day we would also pay in these showrooms, pay money to watch his music videos. And there were so many hits. There was this song called Ndanu Likanga Lini. It's ndanuli kangalele.
Waino ya mutongoi.
There was a song called Wichekitole. It was like Wichekitole wa mama.
Wichekitole kwe ata. Nice song.
You know, there was a song called Wakatimba. There was a song called Miss Musembi.
Gwenda muno mwitua Musembi gwenda muno. I used to love those songs very much as well.
You know, so a lot of hits. I actually, like, once in a while I listen to them, like it just starts ringing in my head, and I'm like, today, Kenwa Maria, and of course, like, there's the later ones he released, you know, I don't know, Fala Mujini and a lot of those. So.
And Fundamentos.
Everybody
knows Fundamentos.
You know, that became quite popular, but you know, like, I was listening to Ken way before Fundamentals when he was singing about Ngalia Mutongoi and wanting to stand for the MP
and Kalonzo
and Kalonzo being the, you know, like our best son.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So, you know, as much as school is academics mostly, there are all these other parts of the school which you really have to adapt to or to try and catch up to. So that was a shock all through, and sometimes you feel like you don't belong, you feel a bit left out. So I experienced that.
Thank you. And would you say, because I've experienced a similar sort of stuff where people are, especially the first days when you open schools and you've not yet started studying as much, and children are discussing soap operas, they're discussing the latest gospel music, not necessarily gospel, the latest music, they're discussing R&Bs, and you have no idea what these people are talking about. So to some extent, did that motivate you to explore, to become just not just the village boy, but to expand your experience to an experienced village boy, which I think is how you describe yourself now. So would you say that the exposure, the ability to overcome those stereotypes that were usually labeled, you know, due to the exposure at the high school you attended, did it in one way shape your ambitions to become who you are today?
You know, firstly, I was a very confident kid. I had opportunities when I was younger to be a part of this organization called Kenya Children Assembly, which enabled me to travel a bit and to meet some influential people. So even if I was herding the cows at home, you know, I'd seen a bit of the country, been to some spaces, had people listen to me and thought that my thinking was good. So, you know, I had a bit of confidence. So I didn't consider myself or my view of the world to be inferior. I was keen to remain the person that I am. But of course, it rubs on you. Like you can't go to a new place and remain the exact same person. So yeah, of course I would go to the school entertainment and I would see these latest movies. I would listen to these latest songs. You know, like we'd go to the cyber and we'd Google these things. So yes, because of hearing those conversations, they fueled me to understand the popular culture. But I was very keen to remain myself, because a lot of times peer pressure might push you to want to be someone else. It was very clear to me that I wanted to always remain true to myself. And so I only did things that resonated with me. If it didn't feel alright, then I wouldn't do it, because I thought the main reason you're in school is academics. Anything else is extra, so it's not essential. But yes, of course, the school had a lot of impact on the person that I am today.